I'm going to start out with a quick slideshow, just kind of talking through what spreadsheet server is, what Excel analytics are, and how they can kind of help you in your business. Just for a little bit of background about who Redirect Consulting is, if you don't know who we are effectively Emery and Yardy consultants. That's our main focus. We do work with some other systems out there, RealPage, Nexus systems, some various investment management tools, but the bulk of what we do is working with Emery and Yardy. We've been doing this for a long time. We're in our 17th year now, with offices in New York and San Francisco, as well as consultants and staff throughout the country. I'm actually coming to you from sunny Arizona right now, although I was on the East Coast last week, so I hope you're all starting to warm up soon. Some key parts about what we do is really end-to-end services for Emery and Yardy. So everything from software selection, implementation, business process reviews, custom reports. We kind of do anything and everything. So kind of through our 17 years of experience in this space is where we really started to see the value in more robust Excel reporting. We always kind of encounter a lot of challenges from our clients in regards to reporting. So that's kind of why we have this webinar today and are showing you this tool, because we found it's a really great benefit for our clients. A little bit more about us. In 2015, we helped 100 clients in 100 plus clients in 26 states. I think the firm number was around 120 last year. For the Excel analytics tool, Spreadsheet Server, we have 600 plus users, 45 plus companies. Our help desk has 2,500 plus users. So we really work with a lot of clients throughout the space, focusing on real estate technology and improving your processes in the accounting, property management, and investment management spaces. So a little bit about this tool, this Excel analytics tool. The main kind of key advantages of it to keep in mind as we're going through this webinar is that users are still using Excel. Everyone wants to get away from Excel because of some of the inherent challenges with downloading reports to Excel or manually keying in data. Of course, if you go either of those routes, the problem is your data static. There's no link to your database. There's a lot of room for error as well, especially when you're manually keying in data. But realistically, people love Excel. It's easy to use. There's a lot of functionality within it, and people like it as a platform. So what our Excel analytics tool does is it basically creates a link to your database so you're able to report on your Emery or Yardy data, along with some other systems, directly within Excel. There's no downloading or rekeying of data. There's no data warehouse. As well as it's a very easy implementation time. So I say virtually no training required, and a lot of people say, well, you know, how is that possible? But it's a very easy end user type tool. We're gonna focus on the financial reporting piece today. However, there is a piece of Spreadsheet Server, a secondary level of license, where you can hit any table in your database, whether it's construction data, leasing data, expiration data, whatever it might be. There is a piece of the tool that allows you to hit anything through the entirety of your database. The financial reporting piece, though, when we say, hey, it's an easy 8 hours to get up and running, that's what we're talking about. Once you move outside of financial data, it does become a little more technical. I am also going to show some components of that today as well. Some more kind of key features here and things we'll be looking at is the ability to combine data from multiple sources. So if you have multiple databases, if you, let's say, acquire a company that's on a different system, you can use this Excel analytics tool to look at multiple sources of data at once. You're still maintaining all of your Excel functionality. There's nothing you can't do with this tool installed that you can't already do in Excel today. And we have some really cool examples of that as well. So whether it's VLOOKUPs, if statements, charts, graphs, pivot tables, all of that you can still do today. Most importantly, when we're talking about working with your data more dynamically and actually being able to interact with it versus seeing static numbers, is you can actually drill down to the source data in a very flexible way. So you're not going back to your source MRI or Yardi system. If there's questions on numbers, you can drill down directly within Excel. You know, we've been doing this a lot of years, and with this tool specifically, we've done a lot of customizations specifically for a lot of our clients who've made requests. A few of the items that kind of features that are included in this tool to make it easier for you to use are account wildcards. So everything, let's say if you want to start pulling all accounts that start with a 1 or end in 100, you can do ranges of accounts. You can exclude a certain account within a range. There's a lot of flexibility to enable you to look at your data however you want to see it. You can use, if you're coming from the MRI side, and let's say you have account groups, you can use that. For MRI as well as Yardi, you can use any property groupings, property lists that you've created. There's a security model in place. There's a user-friendly template builder, and I'll actually show you how you create a template. So if you're thinking at some point this seems really easy, it actually is. That's why we started recommending it to our clients. But I'll actually show you how to create one from scratch as well. And the last bullet point's really important because we do have a lot of, like I said, customers who've come to us, clients, and said, you know, I love the tool, but I need it to do this. So we've created some custom functionality for calendar and fiscal years, multi-currency. If you have multiple charts of accounts, for Yardi, we've created an account tree import tool, so it makes setup even easier. For MRI, in a similar function, there's a financial format import tool, so you're not starting from scratch, recreating everything in Excel when you begin to use this tool. As it says here, it works with Yardi on-premise and SaaS, as well as MRI on-premise and SaaS. With Yardi, we'll talk through those details a little bit more because it's not quite as cost-effective to get a VPN from Yardi. So we do have some solutions to solve for that, so you can still use the tool. And like I said, I'll get to that kind of towards the end of the demonstration portion. Okay. So I tried to get through that pretty fast because I know no one wants to look at a slideshow for an hour-long webinar. Here's a quick testimonial for you to take a look at while I pull up the meaty stuff, start jumping into Excel. I also wanted to mention that I am going to try to keep the presentation portion to about 30 minutes. I know you're all busy, so I'm going to try to keep it short, and then Q&A will be after that. So I also have Chris Whitcamp on the line as well. He's one of our technical spreadsheet server consultants with really deep experience, both from a programmer perspective as well as more of a business perspective on MRI as well as Yardi. So if there's anything that I'm not able to answer for any reason, we'll pull Chris in at the end and he'll address any of those questions. Okay, so you should now be seeing an Excel spreadsheet here. If anyone has any issues seeing anything or hearing me throughout the demo, please let me know as well through the Q&A feature. So there's a couple things you might notice right off the bat. You'll notice we have a spreadsheet server ribbon across the top. So this is going to be the link to your MRI or Yardi database. This is where a lot of your functionality is, in addition to right-clicking on live cells. We'll get through what most of these buttons do throughout the demo. We're looking at a very, very basic balance sheet here. You're probably thinking that looks nothing like my balance sheet because we know in the real world they're a lot more complicated. This is just a really simple to kind of view example. So we have our balance sheet here. You can see if we look at this 1.6 million in cell C15, you see this somewhat complicated looking formula at the top here. That's not something you have to create. That's something that's automatically created through the template builder. And as I mentioned, we'll go through that a little bit. I'm going to walk through a couple finished examples of reports to start out. First one's going to be the property comparison, which is a change up from the balance sheet. In that we have our entities or properties down the left-hand side, and we have our balance throughout the year. You can see here we have a chart This chart is just tied into those cells, including these live data cells. In this example, we're pulling directly from our MRI database. If I want to do something simple like just change the year, I can select 2009. You can see all my numbers updated and my chart updated as well, because it's simply just linked to those cells. So this is just a really perfect, easy example of how your live data comes in and it automatically updates charts, graphs, any cell references you have. Everything kind of updates very quickly on the fly. Going over to our income statement here, you can see we have actual versus budget numbers for a specific month as well as year to date. So as I mentioned, this is very much the financial reporting piece of this Excel analytics tool. So it's focused on purely general ledger reporting, but we do have square footage in here. So we are able, through very small, easy customizations, to add things like square footage in very easily. You can see we have a variance here, we have some totals. You can see these are all just Excel formulas. People often ask, well, can I add comments? What else can I do with this data? The answer is it's Excel. You can do whatever you want with it. If you want to say, explain the variance, you can type in anything you want, lots of snow, and it's very easy to adjust the spreadsheet however you want because it is in Excel. Hopping back to our balance sheet here, I'm basically going to go through some functionality from the finished report, and then I'm going to show you the parameters to actually build the report. So for instance, if we're looking at this cash number, this 1.6 million, there's a few different things that kind of happens at this point. Sometimes people might get a request from your CFO or let's say an outside investor wanting more information. You can simply go to the drill down button at the top. When you press the drill down button, you can see all the base level results. Once you start to drill down, you can drill down to transaction level detail. So for instance, if I want to drill down on this top AJH property, my cash account 4, I right click. This is an MRI report, so I'm going to select MRI journals. From here, we can continue to drill down into the CM, AP, RM ledgers as well. So here I'm going to right click on this top result and go into my CM ledger. At this point, you can see we can see our occupant names, we can see income categories, descriptions, transaction amounts, all sorts of different information. At any level of drill down, you can always export the data very easily, and there's a wide variety of ways to do that and ways to present that data. Let's say you want to sort by occupant name, you can do that very easily and export it. In this specific view, there's a lot of different options. If I want to sort by income category, it works the same way. And then occupant name, I can do that. And then you can see we can export it in this format. You can also export directly into another worksheet. So for instance, if I want to drill down and I know I just want to see my base level results, I can go into worksheet and press results. If I want to drill down on the entire number to transaction level detail, I can do that as well. Of course, depending on your portfolio size and what you're drilling down on, that can take a minute, but that's an option as well when you go to drill down and take a look at the worksheet option. So a lot of flexibility with the drill down, how you look at data. You can select multiple rows to drill down on. Typically, people find this really robust, really easy to use. Okay, I'm going to reveal kind of the parameters now that are building this report and kind of jump into some of these features. So what I'm going to show first is kind of where, especially typically our accountants start to get really excited because there's constantly requests that come in that as an accountant or someone that's not technical, they're difficult to accomplish. Or even if you are in IT, going in and doing things like adding a column and getting updated data can sometimes require a lot of manipulation in a custom reporting tool such as SSRS, Crystal, MRI's report design. Here though, you can see we have all of our parameters. In column C, we have our live data. We have some more parameters here at the top. You can do things very simply. You can just copy and paste columns over and say, you know what, now I want to look at 2008. versus 2009 versus 2010. You can do things in all of the fields, such as go year to date. You can do a range of periods, a specific period, quarters. So you can adjust all of that on the fly. Here we have what's called entity ID, or of course in the Yardi world would be property code. Here it's basically, we're looking at it, the brackets mean we're looking at two different entity IDs. We're looking at RA as well as AJH. What you can do at this point is say, you know what, I just want to look at RA and I just want to look at AJH here, and let's put those years back in sync. And you can very, very easily do that. Because it's Excel, there's no limitations on how many columns you add, how many rows you add of live data. Same with basis, of course, you can adjust that. In column A here, you can see the account information. So here we're looking at line 15, MR10 asterisk. What that means is the asterisk is a wildcard. So we're going to pull in everything that starts with MR10. You can see the following lines, how this progresses. In 17, we're pulling in everything that starts with 1, 2, 1, 3, and 1, 4. And then, of course, line 19, we're saying everything that starts with a 1, but let's exclude the range of what we already brought in to then show our other assets. So it's really flexible, again, in how you create these items. What really comes into play is the customizations we've created for the Yardi account tree import tool, as well as the MRI financial format import tool. So if you have account trees already set up in Yardi, a lot of this becomes unnecessary to even use, because you can actually just import your Yardi account trees automatically and have those ready to go. And with MRI financial formats, you can import those as well. Now, it comes into play a lot of the time, well, I don't want to type out my 20 different entity IDs or property codes every single time I want to manipulate this report. And there's two ways you won't have to do that ever. The first is we have what's called locate segment as a button in the spreadsheet server area. What it's going to do is spreadsheet server smart. It's going to say we're in the entity field or property if you're in Yardi. You're going to see your full list of entities here, but most importantly, when you go over to hierarchy, you're going to see any projects, portfolios, etc. that you've already set up in your system. So that way we're not typing in all this information. We can just press insert, and from there it's actually just going to insert the project code. Okay. It works the same way on the account side if you are an MRI user, for instance. So you can press locate segment, and here you can see any account groups you've set up within MRI. With Yardi, as I mentioned, we have the account tree import tool to kind of handle it on that side. So we've seen some cool stuff here already. There's a lot more to see. For instance, if we want to add a row above here, we can very easily do that just by copying this down. So for instance, let's say I want to see everything that starts with MR1, let's say 17 up here. Again, you can just type that in. We've already added another row. So it's very simple. We also have some custom functionality we've set up that we can help deploy to you, where when you pull in account numbers, specific account numbers, it'll actually list the account description as well. So we've tried to cover a lot of the basis throughout the years when it comes to creating your creating custom reports in whatever view you would like. Now, kind of looking at this, as I mentioned, it's all pretty simple. It's all really straightforward. It's really easy to use. If I go into the income statement side and I show my parameters here, you can see here we're looking at a specific month and then year to date. You can see at the top here, it's just our standard budget that we've typed in as the parameter. And we've also pulled in square footage as well. So it's very easy to compare actual versus budget numbers as well. People start to ask though, I really need some presentation level items. We're using Excel to create investor books and all this different external reporting, or hey, we have SEC reporting, it's really complex. There's a lot of different things you can do to kind of turn a pretty basic report into something really presentation level. So this is an example of a profit loss statement we've created. Our database is a little low on actual data. But basically what this is this is actually just an Excel template, just a Microsoft template that we inserted into our Excel. We added the spreadsheet server fields around it, so I'm hiding those right now with our specific account numbers. From here, you can see we're looking at it over the year. You can see things like our expenses down here. We've put a lot of different options, so we put spark lines in here and a variety of other items as well. What's kind of cool here is, it's a little more presentation level format. You can add some rows, put in your specific logo, and then kind of bundle it up and distribute it. But what we've also done is on the right-hand side here, we've created some functionality to automatically put a drop-down of all of your properties. So you can come through and just click one specifically and have it refresh. So you can see our data is refreshed. We have new data in here. We've done actuals through. Again, we've just created a drop-down to make it very easy to kind of create this report. So this is an example of something that doesn't take very long to create because the template is already something that Microsoft provided. And all we did was add the spreadsheet server functionality on top of it and add in our account rows. So there's a lot of different ways you can make reports look super polished without going through a lot of work, combining a bunch of different Excel sheets. And in that regard, that brings us to Distribution Manager. So for instance, let's say we have this income statement. We need to run one for each of our properties, and we want one specific report to go to Joe, another one to go to Sally, and so on and so forth. With Distribution Manager, you don't have to come in here and type the property every single time. With Distribution Manager, what it allows you to do is set up a list of distributions. So this is what's called the distribution control sheet. It kind of looks like a bunch of rows of text right now, but what it really is a list of our different distributions. So if I look on line 4, for example, and I press maintain specs, it's going to show this in a prettier, more easy to use format. So basically what I'm doing here is saying, for this distribution, what do I want to do with it? So do I want to save it, email it, print it, or group it? So if I have 5 different reports, I want it to be bundled together and sent again to Jane. You can group those together. If you email it, this connects directly with, can connect directly with your particular email, so you have your address book available to you. As far as file type, you can send it out in Excel, HTML, PDF, or Word. The real power comes in the modify cells piece. So with modify cells, you can say, hey, in cell C7, I want it to say RA. I don't care what it says in cell C7 for an entity or property. At this point, I want it to say RA, and B11, which is my header, I want it to say RA as well. You specify which worksheets you're distributing. Is it the whole package? Is it just a specific sheet? And then from that point, you have a couple other options as well. If you're sending this out in Excel to someone, or you want to say, hey, I want the data as of this date and this time, you can convert just the spreadsheet server formulas to values. You can keep it in its original format as well. So if someone has a spreadsheet server license, they open it up and they have it live. There's some different options there. You can always convert all formulas to values as well if you'd like to just do regular Excel formulas. Once you've set up these distributions, you can actually schedule all of these out. So for instance, you can say I want lines 4 through 6 to go at 1 a.m. on the 1st of the month, or whenever it may be. So there's options there as far as what you can kind of create and how you can distribute those packages. As far as kind of the distribution component, like I said, it's very flexible. With the scheduler, it's very easy to send that out. People often ask about, well, how long does it take to create these reports? How long does it take to send them? Obviously, that can depend on the amount of data. If you have 10 worksheets with 500 rows in each, that's a lot of calculations. But the advantage is it sends, you're not sitting there waiting, it pops up automatically in the folder that you want it to be in. And again, you can schedule that to run at any point. So we've actually set up for a lot of clients because let's say they have a server that's always running. You don't even need to be logged in. No one needs to be logged in. We can have it just distribute directly from there. And there's some other options too, as you can see. So what do we want the name of the file to be? You can change all of this on the fly. So you don't need to go into that maintain specs button. You can change all of this dynamically. So here, let's say if you're emailing it out, you can very easily say March reports and drag that down. So your email subject is very easy to change. It's very easy to stay organized with what that is. You see there's some additional options, email body that you can type in, additional attachments if you'd like to attach anything additional. Again, as you can see, you can password protect it as well. So we have some different options, and we try to keep this really robust and respond to client needs in that regard. So there's a lot more to kind of see and do when we're talking about things like using asterisks, using wildcards. If we want to see our entire portfolio, we can just type in an asterisk under entity ID, for instance. It's very simple. If we want to see, you know what, I don't want to just see everything that starts with 17, and I just want to see what accounts are making that up. There's actually an expand GL row feature. So with that particular feature, what you can do is you can actually expand all the GL rows in a report. And what it's going to do, you can see it's going through a lot of different rows here. It's expanding all the GL rows throughout our workbook. So what it's going to do, should just take a second. Here you can see it's starting to pull in everything with a value underneath that top number. So this is really nice. So hey, we know what our top number is, and we also know what's making up that specific information. It's going to exclude anything that doesn't have a zero, or it's going to exclude accounts that don't have anything in them. So you're just seeing the relevant accounts throughout your particular ranges. This is kind of the financial reporting piece. Like I said, it's really easy to show. It's really easy to look at because there's not a lot to it in the sense there's not a lot to learn. That's why we're able to get customers up and running so quickly. If you already have, for instance, let's say a big sheet with a bunch of data already in it, and let's say you've already defined your, the accounts already listed down the left-hand side, you can simply put in a spreadsheet server template around it and drag it. I'll show you how to do that right now, build a template. So I'm on a new sheet here. I'm just going to press build a template. If you're just using this for financial reporting, you'll just have these two options at the top here, GL value or GL detail. GL detail basically just gives you all of your journal details, while GL value is going to pull in, again, the types of values we've been looking at. Here's all the parameters that you're going to see on your worksheet. None of these you actually have to change right now. The only important thing is looking at your account segments. So for instance, we have 4 account segments here. It's actually very possible to add quite a few more, whether it's Yardi or MRI. Let's say you're a Yardi client, you use property attributes. We can actually set up spreadsheet server so you can pull off property attributes as well. If you are an MRI user and you want to filter by the owner table, we can do that. So this is just kind of how it comes out of the box, but we can definitely customize this and very, very routinely do for a lot of our clients. So here's the only thing I'm going to say is what do I want to see in rows and what do I want to see in columns as far as how is my report structured. I have all asterisks, so it's going to say this could take a while. Luckily, our test database is very small, so it didn't take very long at all. I'm going to change this to life to date to make sure we get some good data. I'm going to change this to 2009. You can see we already have a number in here, and we just have an asterisk for our account. But what I can start to do is kind of when looking at the structure of it, I'm going to bunch this together. I'm going to say accrual basis. For my entity ID, we're going to pull in 60GT, AJH, and RA for those 3 properties. And I'm going to use a bracket. From here, we can start to list our accounts. So if I drag this down, we can start to say MR10, and I know that's cash, or again, we do have some functionality in play where if you're pulling in specific accounts, we can pull in that account description. But that's what this looks like to create a template. You know, obviously there's some work to be done on making this pretty, for lack of a better word, but it's very easy to kind of start and just start playing around and getting numbers. As I mentioned, if you already have a spreadsheet that already has everything, the format you want, everything you want, you can just add rows to the top, add a couple columns to the side, insert this parameter, and because you already have your live formula here, basically you could just drag it throughout the sheet and all of those formulas would follow, and there comes up your report. You're ready to go. We do have clients, I have a specific client who was manually keying in data from Yardi into an Excel sheet basically every month because it had to be in a very particular format, and it was extremely cost prohibitive to do a custom report in Yardi to show that. And we basically just set up one template here, like you're looking at, and drag this formula through, I think, about 200 rows of data. It all updated automatically. That was a definite win for them. They were pretty excited. So it's a pretty simple process. Kind of moving beyond general ledger data, you know, as I mentioned, this isn't just a financial tool. This is an example. I'm pulling up a dashboard right now of something we've created that is a really nice kind of view for more of a overall look at not only financials, even though we have some in there, but occupancy, lease expirations, a lot of different data, rent rolls. So if you're looking at this, this is kind of our overall dashboard. So we're seeing our top 10 tenants by revenue, open AR, lease expirations. We have some nice little graphs and charts as well to visualize that. If I want to, for instance, you can look here, we have some additional fields. So if I want to look at my top 10 tenants by revenue, I can actually just click detail and it'll pop me over to that specific sheet. If I want to do top 10 tenants by AR, I can do that same thing. If I want to look at my month-to-month tenants, I can actually click on that. And what it's going to do is that's actually going to drill down and show me the results of that. Now, what's really cool is, you know, in addition to that, you can actually also drill down on open AR numbers, for instance. So there's a lot of flexibility in this particular dashboard. This is something we created using functionality of our different, from different client requests. So we're not looking at straight general ledger data here. We're looking at, obviously, we're branching into a lot more operational data. From an end user perspective, this piece is just as easy to use as the general ledger. The only difference is we can't provide this to you out of the box because, I mean, we can give you this particular spreadsheet, absolutely, and we can say, here you go. Here's a rent roll we've created, for instance, showing our new leases, our vacant suites, our occupied suites. So we can absolutely provide this, but the reality is none of our clients want to look at things in the same way. Everyone wants to look at things a little differently. They may say, you know, I want occupancy percentage. I also want to pull in, you know, retail sales. I want to see my top 5 tenants in this, you know, all sorts of different scenarios. So the setup of that isn't as plug and play. It does require basically some capabilities to build queries in the Query Designer tool. Now, if you're familiar with Access as a tool, it's very similar to that to build a query. It's not as complicated as other kind of SQL statement type systems. It's more visually connecting tables and pulling in fields. So what I always say is this stuff is really cool. We want you to use this stuff, but we want you to know that it's not an 8-hour implementation. If you do have people on staff who have kind of basic SQL knowledge, then absolutely you want to look at what we call this gold and platinum level capabilities outside of general ledger data. There's a lot of cool stuff here. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do. And this is just kind of a small example as you kind of look through what we've done here. But, you know, we just want you to be prepared that it does require some more technical setup at the start. But from an end user perspective, if you just want to put in some data, it's just as easy to do so. Some more kind of cool functionality we've created with, again, just using all this Excel functionality is the ability to do things like Again, here's a drop down of all of our properties. So if I want to switch this to the RA building, I just press run macro, and it's going to update my data for me. So it's very cool. You can see it already went through. It's going to say the dashboard's been refreshed. And you can see all of our, for instance, all the tenant names. We no longer have some New York, City of New York departments. Here you can see this looks a lot more retail, for instance. So there's a lot of, like I said, cool things you can do. I wanted to show you this piece as well because the general ledger piece is really plug and play. It's 8 to 12 hours of implementation time to get you fully trained. This piece, like I said, it takes a little more time to get up and running, but there's a lot of cool stuff you can do, especially if you're the type of organization right now who's creating a lot of reports and it's a really long manual process. We can automate all of this. You know, we actually have a really great blog post on what one of our clients did with their reporting process to get everything up and running, and in the sense of they actually, I think I'd have to look at the blog post. I'll make sure to send it out. But the amount of hours that they ended up saving by automating this process was really huge for them. So there's a lot more to see. There's a lot more to show here, obviously, especially with the dashboard, this dashboard example component. It's something that's really makes more sense to get into on more of a one-on-one level. So we provide this webinar basically to show our clients and potential clients who are on the list of the types of things that we can do, the types of tools that are out there to enhance your current processes. I think it's pretty rare. I've gone to, in the last 4 years, I think gone to 8 or 9 YASs and about 4 MRI IUC conferences. And I don't think I've ever met a client who says, oh, our reporting is great. It works awesome. Couldn't improve it. And there's a lot of tools out there and a lot of ways to kind of improve what you're doing today. And you know, realistically, it's something where if you're an accountant or you're a director of accounting or even higher level, it doesn't make sense for you to be spending hours and hours and hours downloading reports to Excel and reformatting them and adding headers and adding dates when you can just open this up, save it and send it. You can have it automatically distribute. And that's why, like I said, we started recommending this tool to begin with and started customizing it, is because everyone struggles so much. And I think everyone can kind of sympathize with the idea of you have this one report in Yardi and MRI and it looks almost perfect. You just need to add 2 things. But somehow you go to Yardi or you go to consultant and they say, oh, it's really hard to add those extra 2 columns because of space or because of whatever limitations, and it's going to cost $15,000 to customize this report. And that's kind of the beauty of this is it's Excel. There's much less limitations on what you can do. And you can do it yourself. It's not something that you need a lot of assistance on, especially the financial piece. All of our accountants who use the tool, it's very plug and play. They're able to create things on their own without having to submit a request to IT and wait to hear back. So it tends to really lessen the workload on both IT and accounting sides. With that, like I said, there's a lot more to kind of talk about and go through, but I promise to keep it to 30 minutes. So I want to kind of go into some Q&A at this point. I'm also going to launch a poll just to kind of hear what your thoughts were on the presentation, any additional thoughts. I will be sending this out after this recording, after the webinar concludes. I'm also going to include a couple other resources, including a blog post we did on one of our clients that used the tool, in addition to any other questions that come up that we may not be able to fully address. Okay, I'm going to get started with some questions here. If you have any questions, anything and everything, please ask now. Chris and I will be here throughout the next 20 minutes. I'm also going to make Chris live so he can answer any questions that I may not be able to. Okay, great. So we have one question. You may have covered this and I missed it, but can a company logo be added to these reports? The answer is yes. It's Excel. basically, you just add a row, put your, for instance, in this example, insert a couple rows at the top, and then from there, just insert an image of your logo. So it's very simple. Regarding distribution, the distributions are scheduled and can run and deliver automatically. That's correct. You can also manually distribute them. So if you go through your automatic distribution and then need to make an adjustment or two, you can then rerun it manually as well. Another question about using Yardi. Do we need to purchase additional licenses to use the product? No, you actually don't even need a Yardi or MRI license to use this tool because it connects directly to the database. From the Yardi side, as I mentioned, basically SpreadsheetServer needs a way to connect to the database. If your SaaS, or in the cloud, as they say, that means your data isn't local to you. So the way SpreadsheetServer connects to it is through what's called a VPN that can access your database. Yardi, unless you're on their SaaS private cloud, doesn't have VPNs available. So what we do in that case is we've created a process where you can basically, on an automatic nightly basis, we'll download your database, so you will connect to it locally. And if that's something, that's probably something, from a technical perspective, we'd want to talk through a little more one-on-one. But we have a lot of clients that are on Yardi and using SpreadsheetServer and use that process. This is a question I may need. Chris, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. I have a question that asks if we've implemented this tool on virtual PCs.
The short answer is no, we have not. But if the virtual PCs have Excel or from Office 365, as long as Excel is installed locally on the machines, then you can install it. There is no server component to SpreadsheetServer, so you do not need to go out and add additional servers to your farm for this. It's a client Excel add-in, so it's treated as any other Excel add-in.
Great, thank you. We have another question about this tool allows you to pull in data, but can the tool import data back into the database? And you're right, it would be nice with ABF and Yardi to import data back. So SpreadsheetServer does not allow for write back. There is an add-on piece to it that allows you to write back to a database. That's something we'd want to discuss a little more, but what we're looking at today does not. Most of our clients do not want it to. So it's a completely separate piece, the write back. And if you're Yardi Cloud, we'd want to discuss that as well, since there's some kind of restrictions in that regard.
Liz, real quick. One thing that you can do, especially if you're Yardi, you can always create a spreadsheet to grab data out of your Yardi database and then format it into an ETL, which you can then import back into your Yardi database through the ETL tool.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I didn't think of that. So we could definitely, it might require a little more setup to get SpreadsheetServer and the cell references obviously in place to kind of link with that ETL template. But yeah, that's actually a perfect example. So yes, we can. But the tool inherently itself does not. Okay, it asks what sort of MRI access you would need to pull these live reports. So it's the same on the MRI as well as Yardi side. So if you're SaaS based, so you're in the cloud, basically you need a VPN typically. From an MRI perspective, their partnership or our partnership with them allows for you to get a VPN through them. Basically, you would just need to email your account rep, say, I want to set up a VPN. Typically, it's a pretty nominal monthly amount to set that up, and then it would be 100% live. If you host your own database locally, all we need is your server name and password from your IT. And it basically is all SpreadsheetServer does is it has read-only access, so it just pulls data. It doesn't push any data back. Okay, I have a couple more questions. And like I said, Chris and I will stay here, so keep asking. Kind of a question in regards to what you get when you start. So basically, what you get is we assist you in installing the spreadsheet server ribbon. Basically, once you have the spreadsheet server ribbon in, and anyone that has it, it doesn't matter what Excel worksheet they're in, they can just start building stuff. We can also provide a lot of the items you've seen here. We can kind of talk through that if it's something specific you'd like. But basically, it's a pretty simple process. There's some implementation hours, and then to kind of couple this with another question as far as how licensing works. It's on a per user basis. So basically every Excel instance it's installed in would be considered a license. Pricing on that really depends on the number of users you have. I'm happy to provide any specific numbers to anyone if they'd like to discuss that or go through that. Just shoot me an email, shoot me a Q&A, and I can provide that to you after this. A little bit more about kind of the license levels. The first part, the financial reporting piece, we just call the GL license. Basically, once you move beyond that, we have what's called a gold and platinum level license. The gold license allows you to run any queries that the platinum user has created. So the platinum user would use our query designer tool, which I didn't show you today. We would do that in a one-on-one demo, but that's the access-like tool to create queries. And then the gold user would be able to pull those in Excel. So that it's kind of hard to verbalize all of that. That's something that's much easier in kind of a one-on-one demo. Typically after these webinars, I will reach out to whomever is interested. Specifically, we'll set up another time to chat, go through your specific scenario a little more in depth, and kind of talk through that. One thing about the license pricing is it's basically a traditional software model, or what used to be a traditional software model, where you purchase and own the licenses and can reallocate them as needed. Okay, looks like we just have another question or two. Is there anything I wanted to ask? A lot of times people in these webinars are a little hesitant. Is there anything that you're thinking, I wonder if it can do X or Y or Z? Please feel free to ask that. We're happy to answer anything right now. If you have any specific questions on any of these examples, Chris actually created all of these custom, so he can answer anything specifically. It looks like we have a couple pricing requests, and then from there, I don't have any additional questions that have come in. If there's any more, now's your chance. Like I said, we're happy to answer anything else. We have about 9 minutes left on our calendar. Okay. Okay, we have another question about charts that are not necessarily, it's just basic Excel charting, nothing more exotic than that. That's correct. It's, and sometimes it goes both ways. Sometimes people love, for instance, if I click on this, you can see it's just a chart. Some people say, well, I want the more advanced chart where I can just, click on it dynamically, like, let's say an online dashboarding type solution. This is just Excel. So, the negative to that is, yes, it is just a chart, but obviously the positive of that is there's a lot more flexibility, and it's something that people can create on their own with kind of, I'd say, average Excel skills. But yeah, we try to keep it really simple, because if it's not simple, then people start to think, well, why wouldn't I just have my IT guy do this? Or, and we're still happy to do that. We do custom reporting, but, that's not, it doesn't always make sense, is what I'll say. So sometimes we do custom reports, or we have clients that come to us and say, hey, Spreadsheet Server looks really cool. Here's what we want to do. And we actually say, you know what, based on that, it makes sense for us to just if it's just this one report, let's just customize this for you in Yardi. Cost-wise, that's what makes more sense. And that's what we'll end up doing. As far as kind of the additional, kind of the charting, if you do need something more elaborate, there's also additional charting add-ins available for Excel. So if you want to move And that's something that's not attached to SpreadsheetServer, but you can really just get on your own, and we can recommend as well if you are looking for something more complex. We have another question, and Lisa, I may need to get back to you on this. Asks, when you're running by attributes, can you run by multiple attributes? I believe you can. I don't think there's any reason you could not. Chris, I don't know, maybe you can help me out with that one.
Yeah, Lisa, if you're talking about the GL segment reporting within Yardi, I think Yardi now offer you can do up to 12 segments. We do have a designer GL that we can give you that allows for segment reporting. If you're talking about property attributes, maybe you're putting in a region or a property manager in the attribute section. The answer is yes, we can. It will require a customization to the pre-configured queries that we've written, but the answer is yes, we can do it by attributes, and you can run it for multiple. So you can say, I want the West region for Kevin as the property manager, and yes, it can be done that way. Okay,
great. Thank you, Chris. This is a really important question, actually, asking about user security in MRI or Yardi, talking about how certain roles are restricted to see certain things. So SpreadsheetServer out of the box isn't tied to your MRI or Yardi username. So out of the box, if we're just looking at, let's say, general ledger reporting, then yes, people can pull in any accounts, any entities. There is a security module as part of SpreadsheetServer where you can restrict certain users. You can also do a lot of restrictions around locking cells and using inherent Excel security tactics to lock certain things down. So for instance, if you don't want people to be able to manipulate the template whatsoever, but you want them to be able to run it by date, we have a lot of options in place in regards to that. We'd want to probably discuss the more specifics of the security requests to kind of go through that. A question about tech support. So basically the licensing includes, the way it works is you purchase, let's say 20 licenses of this. Ongoing, there's also the implementation hours you would purchase at the beginning to get you implemented. Beyond that, basically there's an annual support fee, which is about 20% of the license cost annually, that provides you access to Chris and our other nice consultants here on staff for unlimited technical support. The one kind of important thing to note about that versus some other tools is I think we're really uniquely positioned in this because there's tools similar to this out there in the world. There's F9, there's Cognos, there's other ones out there that frankly require a lot more technical skills to set up, even for financial reporting. But when you need support on those, you're not talking to someone that knows Yardi and MRI. While with us, you're talking to Chris, who probably is 50-50 split between SpreadsheetServer stuff as well as doing customizations in MRI and Yardi. So we have experience on both sides. It's actually happened in the past where we get this frantic phone call, SpreadsheetServer is broken, I don't know what's happening, and we were able to identify almost right away that someone had put bad data into MRI, and that's why the error was coming up. So it's kind of nice to have someone that's really experienced in both systems. Okay, that is all of the questions. Anything else before we hop off? We have 3 minutes left. I'm happy to answer anything else. Okay, sounds like we're all set. I want to thank everyone for their time. We appreciate it today. We hope this was really useful for you. As I mentioned, I'll be sending a follow-up email with a copy of this recording, as well as some other information out to you. And we can talk one-on-one. Feel free to shoot me an email with anything else you might think of. I hope everyone has a wonderful